Would you just die already?
Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a good one. Well, we survived week 1 of Friday the 13th, so moving on to part 2. I'm very excited to get into this one. Just like last time, this is going to be a collaboration. There will be reviews dropping from the boys at Goodreal Hunting, Moser movie reviews, Filthy Dan's film discussion, reviews and ranking with Robbie Sobel. All of those channels will be dropping their review on the same day as mine, so make sure to go check them out. I'll have links in the description for their channels and the reviews, as well as House of the Living Dead's channel, which will be doing watch alongs to all these Friday the 13th movies every Friday night on the same day as a review. So this is a huge collaboration, guys. Make sure to go check them out and show some love. And let's get the show on the road. So Friday the 13th Part 2 was released in 1981. It stars Amy Steele, John Fury, Adrian King, and is directed by Steve Miner. So after the release of the OG, the original Friday the 13th, that was a very low budget little slasher that made millions of dollars. So no wonder they rushed out to get Part 2 out there just the following year. So this one starts off basically at Alice's place. She's having these nightmares or whatever, dreams. They're pretty much just flashbacks of the original film. We get to see the whole ending, the whole final act pretty much play out in her little nightmares. Just pretty much to give the viewer an idea of what happened right before this. It's something we're definitely going to have to get used to, because these sequels, they all show these flashbacks before the movie starts every time, and when you're marathoning these films, it really kind of gets to you because you just watch these parts over and over. So after Alice goes through her nightmares and all that in the flashbacks, she starts wandering around her house, and she's pretty much just being Alice. Like, she goes to the phone for a little bit, she goes around her kitchen, puts on the tea kettle there, and it's like, this is literally where we left off in the first Friday the 13th, where Alice is just wandering around doing fuck all, and it's like, God damn, Alice, you make the scene so boring. I'm sure Brett's gonna have things to say about this too, because I know he's not a fan of Alice as well. While I don't hate her, it just, yeah, she does bother me, and she was my least favorite girl in the first film, which is odd to have as your final girl. But anyway, she wanders around, gets scared by a cat coming through the window, which is something that happens way too often in horror movies. And eventually, she ends up opening her fridge and seeing Pamela's head in the fridge. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, all rotted and shit. That's when Jason grabs her from behind and stabs her with the ice pick in the head. And yeah, we're not really sure that it's Jason at this point, but anybody knows it's Jason. They pretty much keep him in the shadows throughout most of the runtime, 3/4 I'd say, before we start seeing full-on Jason in this film. So while it's not a whodunit, it kind of plays out like a whodunit. And there's also a lot of scenes where you think it's Jason about to do something, because you see like a hand, but it's someone else. They like keep tricking you. Where I always found that kind of odd, because this isn't really set up like a whodunit. So after that intro scene and Alice is done, that we go over back to camp. This time it's Camp Packanack. This is a counselor training center. It's not like a regular camp for kids. This is just to train all the counselors essentially, and get them prepared for their job. And there's a lot of counselors, huge group in this film. Way too many to name. There's some we don't even know who they are or whatever. They're just extras. There's that many of them. And this also takes place 5 years after the original. So just remember that we're in 1985 now in the timeline, because that's going to get messy in these future sequels once we keep going into the future. Yeah, so essentially all these counselors are meeting up for this training center. And Pamela and Jason are pretty much reduced to ghost stories by this point. There's the first night they're there, they're all sit around the fire, and they pretty much tell it as if it's a ghost story, like, I'm going to give it to you guys straight about Jason. It's like, what happened here? And yeah, so everybody kind of, it's not that they don't believe the murders and that, it's just that they kind of just brush them off as if they didn't even happen. Even though if you look closely throughout this film, they give the characters enough clues, like having the Crystal Lake sign like on the ground, someone finds it, and you got Jason's shack in the woods if someone were to stumble upon that. There's enough clues and things around to let the viewer and the characters should know that this was not a myth. This was real. Oh, and by the way, Packanack Lodge, or the camp, is on the same lake as, it's still on Crystal Lake. It's just a different section of the lake. That's why we're not at the original camp. So Paul is the one running this training center. He's like head over it. He knows a lot of the councils already. He's worked with them before, a lot of them. Still a few fresh faces there as well. And yeah, he's fun. He's a likable character. He's not too mean or nothing to be running the place. But he knows when to put his foot down. His assistant is Ginny. She is the final girl in this film, and she is great. I love her. Big step up from Alice, let me tell you, in many different categories. But she's not perfect either. She still has her flaws. And I like that because a lot of films set up their final girls like where they do no wrong or whatever, but this makes her feel such like more like a real person, just right away showing up late like that. And she's not only Paul's assistant, she's also his love interest. And she gives a little bit of her background at the first, that she took some child psychology courses and that, which comes back later in the film in a brilliant way. So on the second night at camp, they decide that most of the counselors are going to go out to town, go to the bar for the night, while there's a few of them that stay behind, the leftover crew. And those are essentially the people that are going to get killed off in this film. So Paul, Ginny, bunch of other ones, including Ted, who was like the clown. He was like the Nettie of this film, although he's a little bit more responsible. He's not as wacky, but he's still a wild card and kind of a clown. They all go to the bar, so the ones left at the camp all meet their demise to Jason in all of these really cool different ways. Right off the bat, for characters that they leave at the camp to get killed, essentially, Mark and Vicky are probably two of my favorite. Mark is wheelchair bound, but he doesn't let that stop him. He's really confident in that, and it's really cool to see. Like, he wants to do things on his own, while Vicky is just so likable and charismatic, and she likes Mark, and just all the little foreplay in that they have back and forth is really nice to see. And you just kind of really want to see these two hook up. Unfortunately, that does not get to happen. Mark goes out looking for Vicky at one point, and he gets one of the coolest kills in the franchise, even though it doesn't make much sense. He gets the machete in the face, like right here or something like that, right in the face, and it's like out of nowhere too, making his wheelchair go backwards down a big flight of stairs, and it's like, you're gonna kill off the wheelchair guy like that? And yeah, it's pretty wild, especially with the way he dies. Is like, you get a shot of behind him, you can clearly see no one's there, and you keep getting shots in front of him, no one around at all. So this must be where Jason gets his teleportation skills for the first time, because he literally, like, out of nowhere, he must appear in front of him and hit him in the face, and then he's just gone again. We just never see him again. And it's like, if he was in front of him the whole time, the camera would have either seen him, or Mark would have seen him standing there to whack him. So it kind of makes no sense, but it's one of those kills that it doesn't matter. It looks so great that these little plot holes don't really matter. The effects was not done by Tom Savini this time though, so I don't think the kills stand out as much as the first film, like gore and blood wise, but they're all still very unique. Like Vicky, she dies in a very Psycho-esque way. She goes to look under the bed for two other counselors, and Jason's laying there waiting for her and comes up, and you get a POV shot of him with the knife going towards her. And it's just such a reminiscent of like Psycho when Norman Bates is going with the knife, and you get the shot of him holding the knife going towards. And it's just really cool. It's just a bit tribute to Psycho, just like the score. And it's a little weird because the girl just pretty much screams and doesn't try running, but whatever. And out of the other counselors that stay behind, we got Terry. She's the body, the hot one. And we get some full-on nudity with her too, which is pretty great. She goes down and does some solo skinny dipping right before she meets her demise. And it's an off-screen kill, so nothing too special there. We do get a couple of off-screen kills in this one, but I don't think it's as bad as the first film. It's more balanced. And so after they all get picked off kind of one by one doing their own thing, Ginny and Paul arrive back from the bar, the only two that actually comes back, and they can't seem to find anybody. They're looking around. They're like, they wouldn't have just left the place like this. Eventually looking in one of the beds that were covered in blood. And now they're starting to wonder what the hell went on here. And it's kind of funny. They go downstairs and Ginny's just like, Paul, there's someone in the room. There's someone in the room with us. It's like, it's just a funny scene, I find, because Jason's just like kind of hiding in the room, like ducking down behind something. And eventually he gets up and attacks Paul, and they get into a scuffle. And this is where Ginny's like, I have a little bit of problems with her here, because she literally is standing there going, Paul? Paul? It's like, get your ass out of there or try helping him. Don't just stand there calling his name nonstop. But she snaps out of it fairly quickly, and then we get our whole final girl run with Jason, which is always great. And this one's a good one. You got them running outside, running around. She kicks him in the nuts and a bunch of shit like this. He's clumsy and falling all around, but he can barely see. He got a sack over his head with one eye hole. I'll talk about that in a little second. And all eventually leads them to this cabin, and she goes under the bed hiding from Jason. And Jason tries to trick her by standing on the stool and waiting for her to come out. And at the same time, we get this really cool scene with Ginny trying to be all quiet and a rat going like right by her head. And I can just imagine a lot of girls are scared to death of this, even guys, obviously. But she gets so scared, she pisses herself. There's like piss that's coming out under the bed, which I thought was really cool to add that in. She thinks the coast is clear. She thinks Jason left. She crawls out of the bed, only to find him standing on a chair with a pitchfork. But that chair was no good. It breaks the shit. He falls down, breaks his pitchfork in half. It's like, this Jason's having the worst of luck. Anyway, this gets Ginny to run out and eventually run to Jason's shack, where he follows her. And this is probably the best part in the film. It's really clever. This is where Ginny's final girl strength comes from. She uses her child psychology to trick Jason into thinking he's his mother. They go into the shack, and he has this cool little thing set up for his mom. She has the head there, the sweater, and a bunch of other dead bodies around, like including the cop from earlier. And she thinks fast. She's like, I'm going to pretend to be Pam and maybe trick Jason. And she puts on the sweater, screws up her hair a bit, and when Jason comes in, she's like, Jason, it's your mother talking. And it actually fools him almost. Like, it fools him for a bit, up until she moves a little bit and he sees his mom's head right behind her, and he's like, bitch, that's my mom. And so he gets her with the pickaxe real quick. It all leads to this big fight at the end with Paul running through the door, which I don't know how Paul knew where they were. He was still back at that main cabin. They get into a little scuffle until eventually Ginny picks up the machete and defeats Jason by slamming it down in his like collarbone shoulder right here. And yeah, that's the end of Jason. He's laying there on the ground, and Paul and Ginny get a look quick peek at his face, but the viewer doesn't. And I thought that was another really clever thing to do. Because as you know, this film ends with another jump scare. And the dream jump scare, I should say. They get back to one of the cabins. They're waiting for Jason to come just in case. They're holding up the place. And out of nowhere, they go to check the door, and Muffin walks in, a dog who was dead earlier in the film. So right there should have been a clue to the viewer that this is not real, this is a dream. And out of nowhere, one of the best jump scares in the series, Jason comes through the window behind Ginny, and it's so unexpected. Never seen it coming the first time I watched it, and I have to tell you, it scared the shit out of me. Like, in the OG, baby Jason coming out, or kid Jason, that's really effective. I think that was done perfectly. This one wasn't done as good, like the setup. Like, we didn't get that night. We got music, but just, it didn't feel like the movie was going to end there like the first one did with the cop snap. But this one still, I think, is still scarier. Like, because just the face of Jason and that coming through is with his long hair and like a little bit of scruff and hillbilly look, grabbing Ginny through the window. Let me tell you, that's the most terrifying thing in the entire series, in my opinion. With the first jump scare from part 1 being the second scariest. Like I said, maybe it wasn't done as well on a technical standpoint, but it was more freakier. Now let's talk about the big bad Jason in this movie, Sackhead Jason. Not as iconic as the hockey mask wearing Jason, that's for sure. Especially this being the second film, and most people didn't even realize that Jason had this look. And that's just because of the hockey mask look from the third movie is just so iconic that this one kind of gets forgotten about. But it is creepy as hell. I think it's even scarier than Jason's mask if we're talking about like which one's scarier. It's just creepy as hell with that bag and like the overalls and the hillbilly look there. I know it's kind of silly at times, him running and tripping and falling over everything and his pitchfork breaking and that, but I mean, guy got one eye in his bag on his head, so obviously he's not going to be able to see well and he's going to be tripping over shit. And this is also supposed to be the human version of Jason, which it's tough because if he's human, then it's like the lore doesn't make sense anymore. I love the sequels, guys, but the sequels really screw over the first film's lore. How Pamela did all the killings because she was still suffering from the tragedy of losing her son. But if Jason's living, it's like she did all that for nothing. And it's like it just really doesn't make any sense. I know they try to say that Jason was like living on his own in the woods and that. But if that was the case, the film should have showed us like a little flashback of that. I think that would have tied things in a little nicer. Like, have it so when he was drowning, he really, like, got rescued by someone else or something happened, like, on another part of the lake where he showed up or something. They should have gave us something. It just feels weak the way that this whole movie's set up. Even though I love it. Like I said, Jason is my favorite villain of all time. But I understand the hate that some people had bringing him back here in this film. Tom Savini was not a part of the effects in this one. I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that Jason was back because it cheapens the first film, let's be honest. Like I said, this isn't a whodunit in particular, but they do keep Jason in the shadows for a lot of the time, and they still try to give you red herrings to who the killer might be, even though you know it's Jason. Like Paul, he has the same type of shirt as the killer when it shows the sleeves of the killer. He's wearing like the same kind of color of shirt or button-up shirt. You get Crazy Ralph in this again. Kind of like a red herring again. Kind of just there to say, you're all doomed. And let's talk about his death real quick. He's like spying at the cabin, like being all creepy looking in the window. And he ends up getting like a barbed wire around his neck. But he's at a tree. And the barbed wire like comes out around the tree like this. So was the tree only this tall? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. There's no way you could have put that barbed wire around his neck. Even though the kill looks cool, it really doesn't make any sense. Another really cool kill I didn't really mention is Sandra and Jeff's kill. Sandra was the one who was curious to go see Camp Blood, and like the dummy, like, I want to go see where everybody was murdered. It's like, how dumb are these people? But anyway, she ends up getting it when she's in bed with Jeff, and Jason spears them at the same time, like shish kebab kills them on the bed. And this one's a little controversial because they say it's a ripoff of Bay of Blood, or what else is it called? Twitch of the Death Nerve, which, yeah, that kill was in that movie. I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips. But I don't know if that was on purpose or not, or was it just a coincidence. And there was some new footage found for the new box set that came out for Friday. Someone found the VHS with all the cut kills before the making of that box set, and they did put them in the special features, but unfortunately they didn't insert them in the movie itself, which would have been real cool. They did that with My Bloody Valentine, which I found funny that they didn't try doing that with this one. So, I mean, I don't really feel like going in special features each time just to see the little bit of uncut kills that we got. But it's unfortunate they couldn't have inserted it in there into the real film. There's a few more things I want to mention, guys. The camera work, again, really good, just like the first film. We had a lot of POV shots of the killer, some POV shots of some random people that try to make you think it's the killer. Like they try tricking you a couple times. And we get a lot of shots like from in the woods, watching them walk by on the trail and that, which is really cool. A lot like the first film. And again, the rain and the darkness plays a big part in the mood of this film. Again, just like the first one. They do that in quite a bit of these films, but it always seems to work when it's raining and it's dark. And I have to say the pacing is a lot better in this film. It kind of slowly starts off after the Alice death, and then it as the film goes on, it's picking up, picking up, picking up, and it doesn't really slow down until the final credits, where, like I said, the first film had pretty bad pacing issues around the 3/4 mark. This one, you don't really notice it as much. So yeah, I don't have too many negatives on this film aside from, like, I wish they would have explained the Jason reappearance lore a little bit better. Just like fix that up a little bit because it does shit on the OG. And it's not just this film, it's all the sequels kind of do that. But this was the first one to do that, so I just wish they could have written that a little better. But I'm not too mad because I love me some Jason, so I'm not going to complain. So all in all, I really enjoyed this sequel. It's actually one of the better ones in the whole franchise. I'm gonna have to give it a solid 8 out of 10, guys. It was a pretty damn good flick, and I think it's a step up from the original. Steve Miner will return with part 3. He directed that one as well, and it's kind of funny seeing how different 2 and 3 are, and they're both directed by the same dude. So that is a little odd to me. So guys, don't forget to go down in the description and check out all the other channels putting out these Friday 13th reviews. They're all solid reviewers out there, so make sure to show them some love as well. And until next time, thanks for watching.